At 8 o'clock on the night of the 17th of August, 1980, a tiny baby disappeared from her parents' tent at the base of Ayers Rock.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is how she murdered her baby on that August night 2 years ago. This is a case of simple alternatives. Either a dingo killed the child, or she was murdered. And if it was murder, the evidence points overwhelmingly to the accused. Alice Lynn Chamberlain. The dingo story is preposterous, not capable of belief. Dingoes are not known for killing and eating human beings.
Guilty.
Order! Order! Alice Lynn Chamberlain, you have been found guilty of murder by verdict of a jury. There is only one sentence I can pass on you. The sentence of this court is that you be imprisoned with hard labor for life.
We're going to appeal. Do you think we're guilty? Of course not.
Then how could this happen?
We'll appeal.
Michael, I think we should get a divorce. You should be free. No, I don't want a divorce. I just want you. I just want you. I just want you. Michael, I've got to go. No, I don't want you to go. Don't go. Lindy, please. Stay. What am I gonna do? Michael, stay with me. Please. Don't go. Michael. No. No. Michael, no.
There's a mob of press out there. Sit on the floor and I'll lie on top of you so they can't see you.
Lying on the floor? Yeah. I'm innocent. I'm not hiding from anybody.
Come on, mate. Come on. Sorry, Ding. You can tear up my police station, but we can't have you stealing tourist cameras or attacking them.
It's blowing in the wrong direction again. Told ya.
Ding?
Good boy. You gonna be back? You bring in some food and water, Val. You'll be hungry, won't you, boy? Good boy. It's too smart for Frank.
Oh, you're a clever one, aren't you? Yeah, all right.
All over the place, all over the place, all over the place. Watch out for the kangaroo. All over the place, all the way to there's rock. Hey, there it is.
Wow, it's
Can I go see if Uncle Peter's arrived yet?
Me too.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, you older kids can go and see if Uncle Pete's here.
Yeah.
Amanda, you gotta stay in the car.
Not fair.
Oh, not fair. Okay, sign in.
Oh, look at that. Look at the rock. And we're going near it.
Yeah, we're going near it.
We're going to touch it.
Okay. Okay, you can touch it.
Boom, boom, beep, beep.
Thought we could get up before dawn, watch the sunrise.
Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Beep, beep.
What was that?
Amanda!
Amanda?
Get away! Get away!
Oh, God, Amanda.
Get away, go away!
Oh, is it all right? Sweetie? Is it all right?
The dog armor, a dingo foot.
Well, now breathe. Just breathe. Breathe. Shh. Sweetie, breathe. You're all right.
Dragged her out of the car. Are you sure, Mr. Cranwell?
Oh, look for yourself. It must have bitten her here. And here. It pulled her along the ground away from the car.
Have you got a first aid kit?
Yeah, we always carry one.
No, we should put some antiseptic on it. We haven't had a nuisance like this before. Hey? Poor old thing. Do you know if she did anything to provoke it?
There. That's the dingo.
Ding? Ding? We'll have to shoot him. Morning.
Hello there.
How's the little girl?
The welts went down overnight. I think she'll be fine.
I shot the dingo.
Good.
Just wanted to let you know.
to you about the dingoes.
Now?
Now. While you've been away, the number of attacks have really increased. A girl was dragged out of a car. The boy I've seen was bitten on the neck. And another inch and it could have been really dangerous, and we're not doing anything about it. Look, it's breeding season. They're more aggressive than ever.
Don't you worry about it, Bobby. I'll talk to Ian Kaywood. He can tell me all about what's happened while I've been away.
I've just told you what's happened.
It's not as simple as it seems.
What's complicated about it?
Bobby, I've been running this park for 12 years. You've been here a few months. Now, I'm not patronizing you, but you don't understand a place like this.
Well, why don't you cull the aggressive ones?
The dingoes are as much a part of this world as we are, more so. And the tourists love them.
Not when they get attacked. They're wild and dangerous.
Before I came here, I was in Kenya a long time. There were lions and lots of wild animals. The dingo is a magnificent animal. A fascinating part of the desert ecology. We must learn to respect him as a wild predator. I think we should put up some warning signs.
Saying what?
Advising the tourists not to feed the animals, that sort of thing.
Derek, we can tell the tourists until we're blue in the face to leave the dingoes alone, but it won't make any difference.
True, Ian, but the attacks are becoming more frequent and aggressive.
Oh, you want me to tell the motels they have to cancel their 5 o'clock feeding sessions? Tell the tour companies to stop the dingoes being fed in their buses?
I know they're a tourist attraction.
The nuisances are...
attacks.
Call them what you will. They're provoked.
I'm not sure that matters. We've been treating wild animals almost as if they're domestic pets. It could be dangerous.
Cutting off their food isn't the answer.
Let's just put up the warning signs, Ian.
There's a sacred site over there. Yeah, you can't go in there. Okay, folks, we're going to have a special treat for you because you're special people. We're going to show you a special dog, a dingo, and you can feed it or pat it. But just remember, it is a wild dog.
Dad, what is it? What is it doing?
Get away! Get out of it! Let go!
Dad! Dad, help!
Get out! Get out! Come on!
Let's get out of here!
Good. Yeah. Yes, you can. I might have to lift you up, though. There we go. Can you see? Good. We might take one together on the thing.
Hiccups. Hiccups. Look at you, Bubbles.
Help me! I need a torch! Please!
got a torch? I need a torch. The dingo's got my baby. Have you got a torch?
Which way did he go?
Can you see anything?
No!
Anything? No. God.
She's bleeding. I honestly don't know if there's any hope.
She's gone.
It's no time for bitterness or anger. We should not be angry at God for what's happened. It's His will, and we have to accept it.
Are you the parents?
Yes.
I'm Senior Constable Frank Morris. Can you tell me what happened?
Will she survive in the cold? Will she survive in the cold?
Is there any way we can get our baby to medical treatment?
There's a clinic here.
How cold is it? It feels really cold.
You saw the baby in the dingo's mouth?
No, I didn't see it in its mouth. I saw it leave the tent. It was shaking its head. It had something in its mouth and the baby was gone. I saw that the baby was not there. It had just cried and...
Well, which way did it go? Which direction?
Up there. I chased it into the bush. And then I couldn't see. It's so dark.
Right.
I believe this is God's will, and there's nothing we can do about it or anyone else, but we do hope you can recover the body.
Right. Look, stay here. Don't leave the camp area. We have to know where you are.
Alpha Foxtrot Ayers Rock to Alice Springs.
Yeah, go ahead, Ayers Rock.
We've reported a dingo biting a small Aboriginal baby and carrying it off into the bush. No further details at this stage except that some blood has been found at the scene.
Damn!
I'm Derek Roth, Senior Ranger at the park. Have you thoroughly searched inside the tent?
Yes, yes. The baby's not in there.
We fully believe we will not see our child alive again. I'm a minister of religion.
Yeah, right, well. John, find all the rangers. Get them to meet at sunrise. We'll start the search from up there. Quick as you can. Anna, get Bobby down, tell her to open the clinic and be prepared.
Is there any way of finding our child alive?
Yes, yes, of course.
Is it blood or saliva?
Hard to tell in the dark. Nanungaja. Looks like ribbon or something. There's an imprint of some sort of woven material.
Looks like something was put down.
Dingo.
Here. Looks like drag marks. We've got them here too, mate.
Alpha Foxtrot Airs Rock to Alice Springs.
Yes, Airs Rock. Over.
The child has not yet been found. A search has been organised with the aid of some Aboriginals, originating from some drag marks that have been found with moisture around them.
My dear, God will give us the grace to cope.
It says at the second coming, babes will be restored to their mother's arms. We know God is giving us strength. Whatever happens to our baby, she will be in his care.
What I think we might do is go sit on that fence and get a warm drink.
So cold.
Hayden, it's freezing out here. Let me get you something warmer.
Is Regan dead? Did the dingo take him too?
Who's Regan?
Regan! Regan!
It's not there.
Regan! Yeah, there he is. Safe. Come on, quick.
I was at the barbecue because Aidan had said he was still hungry and he wanted some more tea. So I said to him I'd get him some baked beans, which I had, and I was about to cook, when Michael said he heard Azaria cry out. And so I went across to check. Saw this dingo coming out of the tent. It looked as though it had something in its mouth, and then I thought, they're wild animals. And I called out to the others, and I saw inside the tent the bassinet was empty. Where's Michael? Is there any news? Her blankets had fallen out. I thought that maybe she had too.
At least she had her cardigan on. That's something.
Yes.
And keep your eyes out for any signs of burial. Dingoes, like dogs, bury their food. We have to hurry. It's cold, getting colder. Be as methodical as you can. I'll stay here so you can report back to me. All right. Off you go.
Aiden, come and see if Mum will pitch to bed. Lindy. Lindy.
What are you doing back up? Really? Come on. Oh. Come on. Let's put you back to bed.
It's too cold if you find something. Have a look at it. Pull someone over. A bit of clothing.
Nobody's searched over there. What if she's just there? Nobody's searched over there. They're just not searching in the right place.
We have. Greg and I.
But you might have missed something. Or what if she's just out there on the sand hill? Nobody's looking in the right place. The baby's just there. It must be out there under the bushes somewhere. And nobody's searching. They should be looking in that area. I'm going to live with this the rest of my life. I don't want to know that Azaria could have been out there simply because we didn't look in the right place. It would die.
I want to thank God. I want to thank God for the resurrection and the hope of a reunion one day with our baby Azaria. as I have ministered to others in their times of trouble, may we in our time of trial stand firm and not give way, and have the strength to be a witness to the gospel.
Michael, you need to take Lindy and look around that clump of bushes over there.
The police told us to stay here. They don't want us to leave the camp.
I know that, but you need to take your wife and reassure her. I think the two of you need to spend a little time together on your own. Stay close. We'll call out if there's any news. We'll look after the children.
I must have made a mistake. It's not right.
I'm Bobby Downs, the nurse.
What are the chances of finding the baby? Could she survive in this cold?
There's a good chance. A lot of people are searching.
How cold does it get? It feels really cold.
Oh, well. Below zero. It's about -2.
God must have had a reason for this to happen. I hope she died quickly.
9 weeks of joy. They told us to stay here.
Now they want you to go to the motel.
I can't face the tent tonight.
We can't stay here all night. We can't sleep in that tent.
They'll contact you if there's any news. The second line search has started. There's probably over 100 people looking.
If they find anything, we want to know.
That looks uncomfortable. Do you want me to take it?
No, it's just my camera bag. I'm a journo, so it always lives there. I like to be prepared in case any opportunity arises for a photo. What's your name?
Bobby.
Bobby. You're obviously from England.
London.
Long way from home.
It's murder.
Yeah, Jim, sure. Parents haven't even been interviewed, but you've solved the case.
The Dingo story's a cover-up.
Gilroy and the Black Rat are on their way to revolt.
Yeah, to investigate a missing person. Mate, this is murder. Dingoes don't walk in the tents and run off with babies. I told the boss last night after it came through on the radio. Copper 6 cents.
We don't have a body, Jim. Can't have a murder unless there's a body.
Could have been a cat dog.
No way. Tracks are different.
Looks the same to me.
Dingo has no claws.
I've been around Aboriginals nearly all my life. How come I never heard that before?
It's the truth.
Well, your sight's not too good.
Make up 3 groups. The Aborigines will be tracking with you. There are still lots of tourists who volunteer to help. The police from Alice Springs will be here this afternoon. We have to expect that an order will be given to shoot and bag the dingoes for forensic examination of their stomach contents. After last night, this is going to become a very different park.
What if a dingo didn't take the baby?
Ian, I admit it's not consistent with normal dingo behavior.
I've been out here a long time, 17 years. It's longer than anyone, and I've never seen or heard of a dingo taking a baby.
Report back at noon.
Okay, folks. Form up a nice big long line, going out that way. Moving out that line. In the cover.
Same one. Same dingo.
Which way do you go?
Look, close. See, 2 pots of baby. You pick him up. Run that way. Drag him. You know?
Let's get on with it then. Voila. Lead the way. We'll follow.
Must be devil. Jangan jatuh ke dalam.
Did you take the Valium last night?
She was beautiful. My husband wants to send these down to Adelaide to a newspaper.
You don't have to do that.
It's what he wants me to do. We want to warn people.
Perhaps join after we do a little police work.
Oi, missing persons is a crime, right?
Yes, Detective Sergeant.
Sergeant, I've been demoted, Franco, hadn't you heard? Call me Black Rat, I prefer the nickname to anything else. So, if missing persons is a crime, then this is a crime scene, right?
Yes, sir.
Which, it would appear, you have allowed to be erased.
It was midnight, well below zero. The parents had lost their baby. There were droplets of blood in the tent. It seemed the right thing to do.
Pack up the belongings of the tent, throw them in the back of a dusty truck and remove any chance of us being able to do our job. Okay. Let's see what we can do.
So you found the tent empty, Mrs. Chamberlain. What did you do next?
I just yelled. There wasn't time to go and tell people. I just yelled out, "Has anyone got a torch? Dingo's got my baby."
We were heartened a bit because there are over 200 men out there fighting to save the life of the little kid, and it was shocking, but we just held on to some little hope. But when we saw the spots of blood in the tent, and this morning we saw the blanket, the sharp, ripped, jagged marks on that thickly woven blanket, that was a powerful beast with sharp teeth. And it was more than a domestic dog that could do that.
Dingo sniffed babies through a small hole here. He come around, kill him. No worry. Little baby been dead. In our boy, pick him up. Talk to that baby. I know that. Blood there. He's carrying something. Walk uphill towards June. Him from a big one.
Yeah, well, definitely dingo, dog, whatever tracks.
We'll talk to the rangers after we see the parents.
We would eliminate the other possibilities too. Set up roadblocks around the territory to ensure the baby wasn't kidnapped. Do a sweep of the place in the helicopter.
That's expensive. But I'll put in a request. I'm sorry about this, but I must ask you about what happened to your little baby last night.
I think it will probably help me to talk about it.
Now, if you could just give us a sketch in relation to the tent and the barbecue.
The car was parked here, facing in, and the dingo came out here across the front.
And where would you have been when you saw the...
About there. It would have been about 10 metres.
See, the thing is, process of elimination, okay? If anyone says it's not a dingo, then what would it be that could do that? And that's my question. I believe it was. I didn't see it, my wife did. But what other creature could do that? And the alternative is too frightening if there is an alternative.
What about that guy? What the hell was he on about? What creature could do this?
Bereaved parents behave in unusual ways. He probably takes the cake.
There's been a lot of talk about how weird they are.
Oh, being strange is not a crime, John.
Don't get me wrong, I don't think they had anything to do with it.
Nor I.
But their behaviour hasn't gone unnoticed. It's going to be commented on. We should impound the car, thoroughly search it so as to clear them as suspects.
John, there's no doubt a dingo took that child. Why put the parents through any more grief?
Because, Seamus, with all due respect, it's our job.
Leave them be. We should respect them. He's a minister.
What happened about the roadblocks?
Like I suspected, too expensive.
And the helicopter search?
No, Tommy at the old takes you. I'm worried about this fence on the southeast border.
Ice. Can't search the family car. Can't set up roadblocks. Can't use helicopters. It's a joke.
Alpha Foxtrot, Ayers Rock to Alice Springs, over.
Alice Springs to Alpha Foxtrot, Ayers Rock. All right, Seamus, over.
Yeah, good, mate. There appears to be little doubt the child was taken by a dingo. There's no reason to doubt the Aboriginal trackers who followed the tracks and said the dog was dropping something every 100 yards. Alpha Foxtrot, Ayers Rock to Alice Springs, out.
Hello, I'm Jeff DeLuca from the Adelaide News.
You're a police reporter, aren't you?
Yeah. You interviewed the parents yet?
What the fuck is that to you?
Yes.
Me too. I think the Chamberlains have an unusual demeanour, the ease with which they spoke about the incident.
Who cares what you think?
The father was smiling during the interview. It's a strange reaction for bereaved parents. Did you know he sent photos to my newspaper? In the light of that, I think the police shouldn't accept the Dingo theory without challenge. This is not a thorough police investigation.
Amen to that.
The dingo is a wild animal. Dingoes are prone, for no apparent reason, to attack. Since the attack, the plaintiff has been nervous and upset, given to crying and bedwetting and nightmares. Dingoes must be treated with extreme care and suspicion. The dingo is, by its nature, inherently dangerous to man. Its keeper has an absolute duty to confine or control it so it shall not do injury. He keeps it at his peril. If he loses control and it does damage,
he is responsible. Stringent absolute liability on the keeper. 1979, last year. Judge Forster in the Darwin Supreme Court.
It's an accident. No one's going to get sued. It's not America. People get eaten by crocodiles, you know? We've never had a problem with that.
Trevor, it's 1980. Even my 10-year-old knows the meaning of the word compensation. So, who owns the dingoes?
Nobody owns them. They're wild animals. The Conservation Commission manages the land. I guess they're the keeper of the dingo.
Conservation Commission. We better find out if the keeper tried to control the, what was it? Wild animal.
It's them.
Has anyone got a torch? Dingo's got my baby.
Saw the blanket, sharp, ripped, jagged marks on that thickly woven blanket. That was a powerful beast with sharp teeth. It was more than a domestic dog that could do that. It was confirmed in our mind that this was a very powerful, sly, wily beast that had probably stalked the baby.
Bullshit, wily beast, what crap.
And it was probably premeditated, we feel.
Premeditated? Who is this bloke?
Such a rotten, horrifying experience.
One of Australia's most bizarre disappearances occurred at Ayers Rock. The infant girl, Azaria Chamberlain, vanished. Some said she was taken by a dingo. Some said she wasn't.
Isn't that Ding?
I think so.
Boys, look at Daddy. Good. 1, 2, 3. It's good. Okay, off to the car. I'll take one more and I'll see you in a minute.
Mother, baby mother. Same feet, them. Sorry, business mother. Him need to come home to mother. Baby lost.
Excuse me, Mr. Rock.
Yes, Mr. Chamberlain.
Do you think I could photograph the jaws of this dead dingo? If you were to hold them open for me, I could get a shot of how wide they are.
Michael?
I don't think that would be appropriate, Mr. Chamberlain. Sorry about that.
Funny bloke.
In you get, come on.
People deal with trauma in their own different ways.
Gotta get going.
Yeah, right. That's certainly what you call a different way. A lot of people are saying they belong to some weird religious group.
Seventh-day Adventist church. Grew out of the Methodist faith in the last century, I believe.
Mr. Chamberlain was very collected. He was very calm and collected. I recall him saying words to the effect that God must have had a reason for allowing this to happen. They expressed the hope that she had died quickly.
I couldn't help but get the impression of a strange atmosphere. Mr. Chamberlain stated that he had not expected to see his child alive again, and that he was better off looking after his wife. Mrs. Chamberlain appeared to be partially emotional. I found it very difficult to believe they weren't taking an active part in the search.
I must admit the conduct of the mother and father in this case was quite amazing. I didn't get the feeling there was any urgency in the search in the beginning. And that's a fact that worried me because I rather had the opinion that if a hue and cry, to use a good old term, had been initiated straight away, there was a good chance of the baby being dropped by the animal. Apparently, this didn't happen.
There's Tim there, darling. Come on, watch him. Where I can see you. Sweetie, sweetie, sweetie. Shh. Come on now. It's all right. You're all right. You're all right. What happened? Shh. Hey. You're all right. Max. She was hysterical for 2 hours.
What did the dog go for?
We just walked past her and she saw her and she just started screaming. It was the same colour dog as the dingo.
Or should we take her to the doctor?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, how do you deal with this sort of thing? I think it's just delayed shock from the dingo attack.
You don't think she's heard anything about the Azaria Chamberlain attack?
Maybe. I mean, everybody's talking about it. But she's only 3 years old. It's unlikely she'd understand.
Well, we should tell the other kids not to mention it, just in case.
Look around you. When your mum and I first came here...
Is this going to take long, Wally?
Depends on the interruptions, Margot. You could walk freely around the rock, but now parts of it are being fenced off.
Why?
I'm about to tell you, because they're sacred sites for the Aborigine.
What's the sacred site, Dad?
Oh, it means it's like a church for them. Look at that cave up there. Beautiful. Oh, look at that. Some joker's gone and left their fish and chip wrapper on the ground. Margot, can you take the kids back to the car? I'll take them back to the car.
I have to verify it's Azaria Chamberlain's.
Those clothes are far too neat, you know, undamaged.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And the wildlife should have scattered them.
Nipper? Looks like the dog laid down here. The grass is flattened.
Same dog. Big dog. He lay there.
Same dog as Sandel.
Think I found something? Looks like blood and intestine.
Wouldn't surprise me if the dog walked straight down the bloody road. 5 kilometers. A direct line from the campsite.
Nangada. Papa inarako. Mura.
What's he saying?
He's found a dingo lair.
Papa inara kulunjara nyenengi.
Dingo bitch and puppies were living in there. Y'all jingara pakano.
Monga tokatengu.
They've been gone for a few days.
Kuka onkulangarangi.
Dingo brings food for puppies.
The dingo was no good. It had been eating pickaninny. I shot the dingo. Later we were shown the remains of the child. The whole of the carcass had been badly chewed. We estimated the baby was up to 12 months old. 1961, dingo eats a baby.
Jesus. Commissioner.
Yes.
We're keeping track of the Chamberlain case.
Now that we found the baby's clothes, we know for sure that the dingo story is bullshit.
Because of the clothes?
But Frank said the jumpsuit was hardly damaged at all. Dingo would have tore it to shreds.
Frank's hardly an expert in this sort of thing.
Case has gone to CIB. Graham Charlwood's running it now.
I'm taking over the Chamberlain case.
I'm going to the pub. James is a lovely bloke. The shame about it is, he doesn't have a suspicious thought in his head. Graham's a terrific policeman. He's thorough, he's meticulous, he's smart. The job's good for him. A bloke could die of bloody thirst in here. Ten years ago, 3 solicitors in Alice Springs. Now, the Chief Minister, Paul Everingham, the ex-Solicitor General and his old law firm partner, Ian Barker, and the new Solicitor General, Brian Martin. 3 of the most powerful men in the territory. I'd still be sitting behind a desk in Adelaide if it wasn't for Paul. About time. Another one, love. I better go and say hello.
Yeah, but before you do, sir, can I just bring up the matter of forensics?
What are you implying?
I've been advised by colleagues in Adelaide that some of the scientific work done in some of the forensic labs is coming under scrutiny and criticism and may not be as reliable.
I know those men in those labs. They're visionaries. Those men are responsible for starting forensic science in South Australia.
What do you think? Rex? Frank? The police think foul play might be involved.
I find it astonishing to believe that a dingo could have done.
Well, the mark could have been made by a canine when it was carried.
Bird pickings?
Just doesn't look right. It's unlikely these marks were put here by a dog.
This plant material has been rubbed into the jumpsuit. Deliberately, I'd say.
Yes, it's very broken and fragmented, so... Definitely being rubbed vigorously. Deliberately, I agree. Now, where are those photos?
Look at those holes and the cuts. And there's plant material on the inside as well.
They are not from teeth, they are cuts. Have a look.
2 cuts in the collar. And those holes look like they've been pierced by a sharp object. It's too small for a tooth.
Yeah, the collar's been cut with scissors. And the sleeve too. Yeah, the fibres are cut and not by teeth. And the holes have probably been made with a sharp pointy instrument, like a bullet hole, an electric screwdriver, something like that. Maybe a knitting needle.
And if that happened, and the child rolled onto its back, that might account for the bleeding.
And when these cuts were made, there was no baby, and the blood was dry.
Looks like the sleeve was cut when flattened out.
Well, you think the incisions were made to try to simulate a dingo attack?
It looks that way.
Well, this soil certainly didn't come from the site in those photos. You think we can get a trip to Ayers Rock?
Well, if we go to the area, we may be able to see where the clothes went. It may be possible that we might find where the body's been hidden, if it was hidden.
Well, there's absolutely no sign of any disturbance around the clothing. And how could a dingo put the clothes in a neat bundle like that?
That looks pretty good. You right?
It just doesn't add up in my book, that's for sure.
Azaria means sacrifice in the wilderness.
It means blessed of God.
No, it means sacrifice in the wilderness. It's Hebrew or something.
Azulia means sacrifice in the wilderness. Azaria means blessed of God.
Well, everyone's saying it means sacrifice in the wilderness.
Where did they get that from? Sacrifice in the wilderness? It's nuts. I wish people would get on with their own lives and stop gossiping.
I never really liked this dress. Your taste is different to mine. It's ridiculous to say it was for a sacrifice.
I dressed her in black as a symbol before I took her away to the wilderness to sacrifice her. Get it? Anyway, it was Regan's.
Something smells good.
Kids' dinner. You don't deserve any. You're late.
I could be really nice.
Nope. How nice. I might just reconsider that.
Hello, Chamberlain. I'm sorry, she can't come to the phone just at the moment.
Sons were born unto the sons of Noah after the flood, and they went forth and were the fathers of the nations of the earth. To do something about that cough. You know, I was teased when I was at school.
Why?
We were never anywhere long enough. My granddad was a pastor when I was little, and every year we had to move to a new town, and that meant going to a new school. I was always the new kid. And they never liked me to go to other kids' houses, so I was always different.
You're poor, weren't you, Mum?
Only sometimes. So when I used to get teased, I used to get angry and upset. I cried. I was in the shadows. You remember how we've talked about the shadows?
Yes.
But then I realised that if you cried, you were making the bullies happy because their teasing had worked. And then they'd do it again. The shadows are where the bad things are, the things that make you cry. And when the shadows come, you face up to them. And then...
Step into the sunshine.
Can you do that for Mummy?
I'll try.
If other people are nasty, it's their problem, not yours. Kiss for Mummy.
I want Bubba to come home.
I do too, sweetheart. But the Bible tells us that she's asleep. Like Lazarus.
I'm sorry, Mum.
It's all right. We're allowed to cry for Bubby. I better go and see what your dad's up to. Sweet dreams, big man.
Running sheet, missing child, Azaria Chamberlain. Detectives arrive in Mount Isa at 1000 hours. Liaised with local police. 1300 hours, warrant taken out on Chamberlain residence. 1630, attended Chamberlain doctor, Milne. Milne stated that although the child was dressed in black, it was consistent with the mother's flamboyant mode of dressing. Attended ITQ8 and viewed videotape of the Chamberlain interview with Willisey on 7.
I remembered I was going to the tent because the baby had cried. I felt sick. If she'd cried, she'd been disturbed. This all flashed through my mind in a matter of seconds. I dived straight to the back of the tent. Instinct told me she was gone. Reason told me it was not possible.
When you went into the tent, what was still in the carry cot when you felt in it?
Nothing but the sheet and the pillow. It was still warm.
When you say the dingo ran in front of the car, did you see anything in its mouth at that time?
I didn't watch it go particularly. I was concentrating on the tent and what I would find.
Did you see anything in its mouth when it ran into the scrub?
I've already stated I didn't. My mind refused to entertain the possibility. It's like a mental block. I've tried to recapture the picture. I can see the dog in my mind, but its mouth remained a blurred blank.
How long was Michael absent from the tent when he went away and came back?
I don't understand your question. That was the first time Michael had been to the tent since we'd got back from the sunset.
You said previously that Michael had gone away from the area of the tent and then returned. How long was he away on this occasion?
I don't know. He went to the car to look for the torch. I hadn't realised that he'd gone elsewhere until he came back from the opposite direction.
Was there anyone with you and Michael when you were out searching?
There were others in the area, but not with us.
Can you tell me if you recognise this piece of clothing?
Yes. That was the singlet that Azaria was wearing.
Can you tell me if you can recognise those pieces of clothing?
Yes. That is the nappy and the booties that Azaria was wearing.
Can you tell me if you recognise this piece of clothing?
Yes. That is the jumpsuit that Azaria was wearing.
Certain forensic tests have been carried out on the clothing. One of those tests was to determine the presence of dingo or dog saliva. The results of those tests were negative. That is, there is no dingo or dog saliva present. Have you any comment you would care to make?
Nothing that I can think of. Just makes me wonder how.
Would you have expected saliva to be present?
He would have to use his mouth, I should think. I would have expected to have some on it. I presume dingoes have saliva.
Further forensic tests were carried out in respect to the holes present in the clothing. The results of those tests indicate that the holes were not made by either dingoes or dogs' teeth. Is there any comment you would care to make?
Do your tests show what made them?
No, not conclusively at this stage.
Are you trying to say that somebody murdered her?
I'm just putting to you the facts that I have, to which Judge, I'm looking for answers. Do you know what happened to Azaria?
From the information you were giving me, I'm beginning to wonder if I know anything. But I feel certain within my own mind that it was a dingo.
Anything?
Nothing of significance. I know the theory was the child was murdered in the car, but I can't find anything. No bloodstains. No sign of trying to remove bloodstains. No cutting implements.
How long you been at it?
Yeah, about 2, maybe 3 hours.
Police don't believe us.
Yeah, we'll be fine. I've spoken to them, they understand.
Perhaps we should think about hiring a lawyer.
We look like we've got something to hide.
There's all this really confusing forensic evidence the police keep talking about. It'll come up in court.
We can handle it.
It's very complicated and we need to be prepared.
I'm a minister of religion. What would I look like going in there with a lawyer? There's no place for alleged criminals in the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Michael, I think we'll be out of our depth.
You're saying I'm stupid?
No. The church might offer to pay for any legal costs if we wanted it.
Lawyers are expensive. This could cost a lot of money and the church might get upset with me. It could have an impact on my role as pastor, Lindy. No. I don't want to upset the church.
I think this coroner's inquest is going to be different from what we first thought.
How?
We're going to be in the hot seat.
All right, then. You do it your way, I'll find us a lawyer.
If we just tell the truth, everything will be fine.
Yes, Terry.
About Lindy Chamberlain, is she really guilty or not?
I am positive she isn't guilty.
I think that she's a cold-blooded, calculating murderess.
I thought he was a crank at the time because his face was entirely stressed.
I think that there's a big cover-up. She's innocent.
Do you think she's had a fair go or not?
I think she's had a very fair go.
Do you? Well,
and I could never, ever have gone back to a motel and sat down and had a cup of tea.
If I told you that items had been examined by a forensic dentist and he concluded that the marks are cuts, not tooth marks, what would you have to say about that?
I've got no comment to make on that.
The position is, Mrs. Chamberlain, is it not, that insofar as the experts have concluded the damage is inconsistent with being caused by a dingo, you do not accept that?
In the 3 different reports, there have been considerable personal opinions.
Do you accept them or not?
I'm answering the question, and if I'm allowed to...
My question is, do you accept them or not?
Your Honour, may I finish what I was going to say?
No, I'm sorry. You are not in a position where you are permitted to ask questions. Only answer them.
Well, what is the answer?
The answer is that in reading these statements, I have found a lot of personal interpretation in them, and I find that they give no hard evidence one way or the other.
So that is your assessment of what I have told you about the forensic evidence?
My assessment is the gentleman who did it has gone as far as he is able, and has also put some of his own opinions as well, as no doubt you are doing at the moment.
The inquest opened in sensational fashion today. Mr. Ashley McNay, assisting the coroner, revealed that forensic tests would suggest that a person, rather than a dingo, was responsible for the baby's disappearance.
You've been down at Ayers Rock since February, have you?
Yes, that's right.
There are a lot of residents down there that have a pet, a dingo that frequents their houses, a particular dingo.
Yes.
Have you had suggestions by locals that if a dingo took a child under these circumstances, and it happened to be one of the local dingoes, it would probably bring the body of the child back to the house it normally frequents?
I would not like to make a comment about that because I do not know enough about dingoes.
No, but have you heard any suggestions about that at all? By anyone?
No.
At the time that you've been living there, have you been aware of any people living there keeping dingoes as pets?
No.
I saw a lady who appeared to me a little distressed. I asked her if the baby was being carried by the dingo. She told me the dingo did not have anything in its mouth.
In the 12 years that you've been at Ayers Rock, how many occasions has it been reported to you, or you've heard by any means, that somebody has been bitten or harmed in any way, or generally a dingo shown aggression to a person?
Yes, well, in the 12 years, there have been very few of those incidents with wild dingoes. The dingo that was there as a domesticated animal, maybe 3 or 4 complaints. When I returned from holiday, I myself received 2 complaints,
The boy I've seen was bitten on the...
neither of which had drawn blood.
When was that?
That was in August. Previous to that, there were no complaints at all. The only complaint we had previous to that was some 2, 3, 4 years ago, when a dingo entered motel premises and removed such things as handbags and camera cases.
Have there been any reports of attacks where there could not have been provocation?
In my opinion, no. Of course, the opinion of the parents of the child might be different to mine.
Have any of the dingoes there been domesticated by the inhabitants?
Not really so much domesticated. They're domesticated in a certain way, I would have to say yes, but it's a semi-domestication.
Have any been made into pets?
Not into normal pets, no.
From time to time, do residents find that if they leave a door partly open, that the dingo will come into the house?
I do not know that one.
Do you know a chap down there, Peter, who was a pilot?
Yes, I do, yes.
He stated on the night, I remained with Val Kaywood for a short time while they were looking around their property because their view was that a dingo does normally bring their prey around the house. Have you got any comments that you'd like to make about that?
I disagree with the statement about dingoes bringing their prey around the houses.
Was a search conducted around the house that night, do you know?
There was some search around, yes.
Do you know whether a dingo would bring his prey back to the area of a house?
No, I do not.
Do you think it's possible that somebody at Ayers Rock came across a very mutilated body and out of an act of kindness to the parents, thinking only as kindness, not trying to conceal anything, buried the body?
Well, I suppose it would be certainly very possible, Your Honour. It is not a thought that I had which adds to the case.
But I suppose, as you say, it could be feasible, yes.
Do you believe yourself that those clothes were left there by a dingo?
No, I do not. I still have doubt. I'm not convinced they were left there by a dingo.
How do Aboriginals regard the dingo?
Kura balaru, mamu,
Not very good.
papa inara, nyoko baiwia, kurun bai kujo, jana pamere bai mono, jana koro kurun ba.
It is classed as devil spirit. Dingoes are heard and not seen so much. They howl. You do not see them, and that is why they come in the Dreamtime spirit.
The coroner has what's called a motive theory. He has a fixation that a ranger was involved, I think unfairly.
He thinks the dingo did it.
I didn't say that. Mr. Barrett is being completely open-minded and appropriately investigating all avenues. That's his job.
The forensic evidence is overwhelming.
I'm not entirely satisfied the nature of the forensic gathering is of the highest standard.
We all know Denny, being an old copper himself, is tough on that sort of thing.
It's not only Mr. Barrett. I have also had to request for a more thorough and complete inventory of the forensic evidence. Graham, it's almost a dereliction of duty.
But you're the one bringing it forward as evidence.
Which is why I'm worried.
You don't think she has a case to answer?
My job, like a prosecutor, is to be a minister of justice. I present all the facts as they come to me, if they come to me.
You're leaving the territory after this, aren't you?
Back home to Perth the day the findings are handed down.
Nice place, Perth. Hello, John.
What happened to my photographs?
The camera was broken. They couldn't be developed.
And what about my soil samples?
What soil?
The blood I found under the tent and the arterial spray on the side of the tent.
Dr. Scott says it wasn't human blood.
Because it's evidence that supports that the dingo took the baby. And that doesn't fit your scenario that they killed the kid.
Because they didn't!
Oh, this so-called expert scientific opinion saying a dingo wasn't involved, that it was a person, me. Somehow this backs them up, this science. How are we going to question it? We don't have any experts to interpret it. We don't even know what questions to ask. How can this dentist, odontologist, whatever that means, say that they're scissor marks and not tear marks?
And he's a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Peter, I really think we need help.
There is a Queen's Counsel in Adelaide. Very sophisticated. Expensive. But one of the best. One of the top lawyers in the country, really.
If your worship pleases, I appear with Mr. Dean to represent the interests of the parents of the child.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Looks like a cattle farm.
Exactly, it's the territory.
The collar of the jumpsuit. Could you tell me your observations as to that damage?
The fibres had been cut with a sharp-bladed instrument, and the cut has possibly been made after the blood stopped flowing.
The evidence you give in the courts is that of a senior technician, Sergeant. And not expressing opinions, though, ever, on fibres, is it?
No. The analysis of fibres is undertaken by a chemist.
And you have in your department a chemist who has a degree in science?
Yes.
Did you submit any of the samples to her?
No. I feel I have more expertise.
Did you take any record by photographic means?
No.
Why not?
I did not.
Looking at the jumpsuit, the left arm of it, where were the scissors inserted?
I felt the first cut was made coming down in an area which is now missing.
But there's no real indication that that occurred, is there?
Well...
Is there or is there not?
No, not in looking at the sleeve in itself.
That is right. So you made an assumption that scissors were used. Is that right?
Yes.
Would you take the effigy jumpsuit? Do you notice any difference between it and Azaria's jumpsuit?
Yes, this looks longer.
The jumpsuit is significantly larger?
Yes.
It is size 1, polynostic rayon nylon polyester. The other is cotton. There is a significant difference.
Yes.
You didn't compare materials?
No, I did not.
Did it occur to you that the effigy should be clad as it was on the night?
I did not know about the matinee jacket.
Would the matinee jacket pick up the botanical material?
Yes, if there was a matinee jacket.
Frank, mate, I don't know if dingoes actually go through mulch bushes. They sort of go around them.
You say that there should have been more disturbance around the clothes on the basis that you know about dingo habits.
Yes.
You're relying on assumptions, not based on experience.
Not actual experience
of dingoes.
Of dingoes, that is right. But I would like to add, I've been on the Zoo Council since 1962. I have appreciation of animal behaviour.
I found that the fibres had been severed.
What do you mean?
They had been cut. The holes appeared to have been produced by an object with a point, but not a needle. A sharp point, something other than a tooth. They had been severed.
Dr. Brown, you've been addressed as such through these proceedings. Is that a courtesy title, or do you indeed have a doctorate of dentistry?
It is a courtesy title.
Have you any higher degrees other than your Bachelor of Dental Surgery at the University of Adelaide?
I have passed the examinations in Part 1 of the Master of Dental Surgery.
But you've not completed the degree?
No.
This is the first case, is it not, where you've been called to express an opinion in relation to dingo bites?
Dingo bites, yes.
It is the first case where you've had to examine clothing in relation to dingo bites.
Dingo bites, yes.
Have you ever at all examined clothing in respect of any dog bites at all?
Dog bites? No.
You do not claim to have expertise in the science of the construction of fibres or the specific behaviour of thread when severed?
I do not claim expertise in that area, certainly.
Did you at any time refer any of the clothing to an expert in this field?
No.
You see, it's not really in your field of expertise at all, is it?
No. I do not claim expertise in fibres.
I'll leave it at that, thank you.
Perhaps I could ask you, Doctor, do you have any experience with bite marks on clothing?
It is not infrequently that the marks I am asked to examine have been made through clothing.
I don't know if that answers the question.
No.
So, if you could answer the question.
I only have had, I think, one occasion where there has been a case where I was asked to examine material for animal tooth marks prior to this occasion.
Once again, I don't know if you're directing yourself to the question. The question was, do you have experience in bite marks in clothing?
No, I do not think I could claim any experience with bite marks in clothing.
How was it then that you were able to examine the clothing and form these conclusions?
Well, he did it, and that's the end of it.
My learned friend might want the witness out of here for a minute.
Would you mind leaving the courtroom, Doctor, for a while? Police have put a lot of time and effort into preparing that brief of yours. All those scientific experts that you've put through the court claiming that a dingo couldn't have done it.
A lot of time and effort.
I was a copper once.
Yes, sir, I know that.
It's an honourable job. When done properly.
I've been sent this from a barrister in Melbourne. He recounts a case in Darwin last year where a little girl was savaged by a neighbour's pet dingo. Her mother won a compensation claim and the judge found...
There was a failure of control of the animal on the part of the defendant. And there was absolute liability. This is interesting. The dingo is inherently dangerous to man. That finding was made
in the Supreme Court last year.
Person or persons, name unknown.
Sir, there's no evidence to support that theory.
The dingo travelled in a northerly direction towards the rangers' houses. Somebody found the remains and disposed of the body.
Really, there's just no evidence.
Well, it's difficult to predict, but one thing we know for sure is that there are still more bombshells to come in the inquest. Mr. Barrett is now considering whether he'll allow our cameras into court, and we'll have his decision tomorrow.
It is surprising that nobody sought to represent at this inquest the interests of which department of whatever government is finally responsible and possibly liable for the overall conservation at Uluru. The dingo is a dangerous animal and is known to be dangerous. The propensity of a dingo reared by humans as a pet to violently attack children was known. Yet, in the face of this, dingoes have been retained and allowed to infest the area. The death of this baby in an area where previous attacks causing bodily injury is too high a price and a totally unnecessary price to pay in the cause of conservation. I should state here that I accept Mr. Kaywood's evidence, and I do not in any way suggest that either he or a member of his family became involved with the disposal of Azaria's body.
It's over. All those rumours, innuendo, over.
The evidence of Dr. Brown was called to show the possible correlation between the bite of a dingo and various items of clothing. I feel it would be dangerous to rely on this evidence. Once again in this inquiry, I have had the occasion to criticise the work done by the Northern Territory Police Force Forensic Science Section. Police forces must realise, or be made to realise, that courts will not tolerate any standard less than complete objectivity. I doth find that Azaria Lauren Chamberlain, a child of 9 weeks of age, met her death when attacked by a wild dingo while asleep in her family's tent at Ayers Rock. Neither the parents of the child were, in any degree whatsoever, responsible for this death. I find that the name Azaria does not mean, and never has meant, sacrifice in the wilderness. I find that the dingo's possession of Azaria was interrupted by human intervention. It may be that whoever rubbed the clothing on the undergrowth had some knowledge of botany, but again, this is speculation. I find that after her death, the body of Azaria was taken from the possession of the dingo and disposed of by an unknown method by person or persons, name unknown.
He's aiming that at us.
Macaulay.
What's giving you the strength?
The Lord Jesus Christ is a very dear friend of ours, and he's our saviour. And peace in God has kept us from being very foolish in our own lives.
In short, you're glad it's all over?
I didn't really think so.
Uncle, Pastor.
We have something here, gentlemen, you may like to see. This is a picture of Azaria, as she really was.
Look at that.
Proof to the world, as we said, a most beautiful baby.
Do you think it's necessary for you to go to this length?
No.
When was the photograph taken, Michael?
She was 6 weeks old.
2 weeks before she died.
3.
What was your reaction when you found out?
She's as guilty as sin.
Human intervention means that somebody has committed a crime. What did Dingo Dinny say? Person or persons, name unknown. Simple. Our job is to find that person, give them a name, and send them to jail.
It's too soon now. Do you think one day we might have another baby?
Yeah. I'd like that. Another girl.
Me too. After we get our lives back together, return to normal, get forgotten.
Sad. I've always wanted to visit Ayers Rock. Thank you so much for coming to see me, Ken.
Tell me, what's your opinion?
It's tragic. This little girl's had her throat cut. See the blood around the neck? And then, according to my examination, and I'll need to do some further work, Ken, she was decapitated.
We've got the bitch!
That kid in that photo is dead. You can tell she's deliberately holding it up for the camera.
Nah, there's a judicial process that has to be worked through. Lawyers always getting in the way of good police work.
Lindsay Chamberlain has been charged with the murder of her daughter Azaria. Michael has been charged with an accessory after the fact.
The Dingo trial would be a battle between egos and reputations.
I suggest that you left the body in the car.
No,
Either
that's-
wrapped or in the camera bag.
No, that's pure
That
fabrication.
you washed your hands in the tent.
No.
In God's name, Dingo took the child.
It's possible that Nipper had a couple of beers. Because he likes a couple of beers.
Who's this Nipper with Matty? Bloody federal government handed back to a tribe of abbo is ridiculous.
Yeah, the dingo took my baby.
There was an incised wound of the neck. In other words, a cut throat.
Caused by what?
A cutting instrument held by a human element.
The defence does not have to prove anything.
Sydney Forensic Lab has a very good reputation.
I went over everything, inch by inch, doing a screening test for blood.
And how many positive results for fetal hemoglobin did you get?
There seems to be no doubt there was fetal blood in the car.
That's what convinced me that the baby was dead, the amount of blood that I saw.
There is a massive body of evidence suggesting the child was murdered by her mother.
She didn't kill her baby. She loved it.
When I read the record of interview,
I'm asking what she told you, not the police.
There was limited opportunity to dispose of the body. There was a lack of a body. There was a lack of motive or explanation. Can I suggest to you that those factors must have made this one of the most unusual murder cases in your experience?
No, would have been a completely normal investigation.
It's our Christian duty to help these people. I can't stop worrying about the damage it might do to our daughter.
If there was no dingo, the child was murdered.
Something has happened.
What, Grandma?
The question, who did it, is brutally answered. Alice Lynn Chamberlain.
The police have brought forward some alarming new evidence which relates to the Chamberlain case.
This pattern of blood clearly shows the baby died from having its throat cut. It's venous blood, arterial. I also believe with this heavy blood loss around here that it was decapitated. Here you'll see a bloodied handprint.
Where?
Here.
I'm sure Professor Cameron won't mind me saying it, but he was selected by the Vatican, one of few to examine the shroud at Turin.
And? Aye, a fascinating story.
So what do we do, Des? How do we proceed? As Attorney General, I need the advice of a Queen's Counsel that knows territory law inside out.
We have the findings of the first inquest, which places the death squarely on a dingo. What you need is as much evidence that verifies Professor Cameron's findings. My recollections of the case is that there are numerous eyewitnesses who observed the Chamberlains throughout the night.
Yes, sir.
Well, the baby has to have been murdered before Mrs. Chamberlain raised the alarm about the dingo. It would have been impossible for her to have done it afterwards.
That's correct, sir. We suspect she killed the baby in the car or at some point during the afternoon.
Well, am I right in saying that an eyewitness said that she heard the baby cry just before the alarm was raised?
Yes, sir. That's a Mrs. Lowe from Tasmania.
Well, if her claim is correct, then the Crown has no case.
The inquest's been reopened. We have a warrant.
Reopen? How? Why?
Michael?
Crime 103 to VKM.
Yep, over.
It's 9:24. We've commenced a search and have both targets present.
We've no result of the search as yet, and we'll call back with more information later.
Get me the Chief Minister's office.
Form the teams in Melbourne, Hobart and West Australia to go.
Did the baby cry at all while at the barbecue?
No.
Did you see the baby kick its legs?
I definitely saw movement of the legs.
Can you recall if Mrs. Chamberlain had her hand near the baby's feet when the baby kicked?
I recall a definite kick from the baby.
Just to clarify that, would you say that it's possible the kicking was simulated by Mrs. Chamberlain?
From what I could see, the baby kicked on its own.
Can you tell me the demeanour of Mrs. Chamberlain at the barbecue?
I had the impression that she was tired, but still very civil and polite and happy.
Is it possible that the cry you heard was something other than the cry of a baby?
I am sure it was a baby.
I deeply regret this, as reopening of the case may cause distress. However, I have no alternative than to do so, to allow justice to follow its proper course in light of this new evidence, including the new information from top British forensic scientist, Professor James Cameron.
From the very first, the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the people of Avondale College at Coorambong have given the Chamberlains their moral and spiritual support. So for the church, it's been a series of disappointments, and today, yet another.
Could the cry have been that of a 3-year-old, such as Regan, crying in his sleep?
No, definitely not.
Did you actually see the baby?
Yes, I saw a third of the baby's head.
Did you see Mr. Chamberlain crying at all?
Yes, and Mrs. Chamberlain too.
Were they crying over a period of time or just a short time?
I suppose it was on and off for the time I was there. I'd like a glass of water.
Oh. Okay. What religion are you?
I'm not practicing.
Would you let us hypnotise you?
Professor Cameron is the head of the Forensic Medical Department here at the London Hospital Medical College. In fact, he specialises in children's deaths, particularly battered babies.
He came to Australia at the request of the Northern Territory government to carry out his investigation.
Northern Territory authorities have imposed a strict security clamp on the report by Professor James Cameron, Britain's most respected forensic scientist. The clamp is so tight...
Time for bed, young man. Come on. Come on.
filed the report after making a detailed forensic study of Azaria's blood-stained clothing.
Aiden.
It's understood
Why did the
Professor
bad man
Cameron
come
found
back?
signs consistent with the baby having been decapitated.
They're telling lies.
It is believed to suggest the manner in which...
Come on, bed. Come on. You too, honey. No fighting.
Professor Cameron's evidence has been described as very exciting by an Adelaide botanist who gave evidence at the coroner's inquest. A number of detectives from Darwin have fanned out to other states to interview witnesses.
That kid in that photo is dead. You can tell she's deliberately holding it up to the camera.
There are some witnesses that saw the baby during the day.
Yeah, and that bird in Tasmania still reckons she heard a cry from the tent. And that, mate, that we know is bullshit, because this kid was definitely dead by then. What happened to your confession?
I put the fact that the baby's throat had been cut. She was completely emotionless. He said he didn't cut the baby's throat.
When I was searching the bedroom, I found this Bible. Opened on a page that had this story about sacrifice. I wrote it down, but it was about this bird called Deborah, and she spikes her kid in the head and then cuts its throat.
They questioned her for 6 hours, but they couldn't break her down. She never once changed her story about it being a baby's cry.
Jesus. What about getting her hypnotised?
Yeah, both she and her husband agreed.
That's good.
They couldn't find anyone. Couldn't find any hypnotists.
Jesus.
Plum?
Graham Charlwood here, sir.
Here, Graham.
There are a few matters of obvious significance. We found a large 1890 Bible with a page marked containing the Song of Deborah and Barak. This was about a woman who spiked the head of her son and then cut his throat.
Deborah and Barak?
It's the Song of Deborah and Braddock.
The Song of Deborah and Braddock. You don't know how to spell Barak, do you?
Just hang on. Barak, it's B-A-R-E-K.
B-A-R-E-K. She seemed to have some probably postnatal bloody depression, something. She was carrying on about the baby suffering from pyloric.
That's right. She had, whether it was false or otherwise, a belief that the child was suffering this thing. In fact, it wasn't. As far as postnatal depression, we haven't gone into that.
It's either that or she's a religious nut. We'll only ever get one good crack at him, so we'll need to be well armed before we ever get back to it. We'll have all our forensics and everything before we go back.
She's got the eyes of a killer, you know. I've seen them. Dark, cold.
There you go, Jim.
And another thing. I was in their house and the Bible was open on this page. It was all about this woman who spiked her kid through the head and cut its throat. So what's the ATOL test say?
I'm impressed. You know about forensic police work?
Yeah, I joined our local forensic unit a year ago. Used to be in homicide, but the hours were too long and unreliable. Before that, I patrolled Arnhem Land. Just me.
That's the size of Tasmania. Well, what I'm looking for is the possibility of whether blood could exist.
And it's positive?
It requires further testing back at the lab to say it's definitely blood. I found the possibility of its existence.
How you going, Jim?
Not too bad.
Listen, mate, are you taking that knife across to Adelaide?
The knife out of the vehicle?
Yeah.
There's a trace of blood on the knife.
There's a trace of blood on the knife?
Yes.
Just a sec, mate. How good are they there in Sydney? On that knife, that could be crucial.
Yeah, well, she's a top in Sydney. The police here assure me she's number one.
All right. The towel.
Yeah, now that towel's the most promising thing we have. She's working on it now. The stains are visible to the eye. She's hoping to get the best results off that.
How much blood's on it?
There's a spraying area about 2 inches and a smear and a smaller smear. As far as the mats are concerned, she's still working on that. Definitely blood, but might not be enough to say whether it's fetal or not.
Oh, Jesus.
But, you know, she's still working on it.
Neil Plum again, Graham. The blood in the car. Can you just go through it again? Where exactly it was?
Driver's side, front floor well area.
Yes. Now, mate, you recall Down saying that's the nurse?
That's where the camera bag was.
That looks uncomfortable. Do you want me to take it?
No. It's just a camera bag. I'm a journo, so it always lives there.
That's the camera bag you wouldn't shift?
That's right.
So there may be nothing in the camera case?
No, we got a positive on blood inside the camera case.
You got a positive blood inside it?
Yes. It's only a hemostix positive. They do react to other things apart from blood.
She kills the kid. I'm not sure when. She pretends it's alive. Or maybe not. But she kills the kid. She cuts his throat and she shoves it in the camera bag, which sits under his seat in the car.
How'd the body turn up at the rock? That was, what, 5 kilometres away from the campsite? It'd take a long time to get there and get back again. When did she do that?
Now, she's bloody got it, mate. She had it all planned. We've retested the car, and Jim found probable blood spurt under the dash in the car. Characteristic of it being fine arterial spurting. He's taken it to a biologist in Sydney. It's a priority.
It came from under the dash of the vehicle. Looks like probable blood spurt. Characteristic with fine arterial blood.
Well, what we'll be looking for is narrow bands across the gel here. That'll give us the positive. It'll take 24 hours.
Can't we get the results before then?
It'll take a full day.
Yeah, but, you know, the boss is really itching to get some results on this. You married? Kids?
Yeah. I've been away from the lab for the last 10 years raising them.
Sydney got any good pubs?
Just a few.
Because up north in the Territory, we appreciate our drinking.
No different from down here.
The thing about being in the Territory, though, when you walk into a pub, if it's Darwin, Alice Tennant, you're going to know every single bloke in the bar. Might not like every single one of them, but you know, you're all Territorians.
Macaulay?
Good news on those tests.
According to Mrs. Cool, fetal blood is present under the dash of the car, on a towel, under the passenger seat, on a pair of scissors.
Scissors?
Yes, sir. When we lifted the seat, you could see it caked. And the blood was still wet on a 10-cent coin, according to Mrs. Cool.
Still wet after 12 months.
The Sydney Forensic Lab has a very good reputation.
That's it, then. I'll have him arrested today.
Nah, there's a judicial process that has to be worked through.
Bloody lawyers always getting in the way of good police work.
You have to deal with Barrett's coronial finding of their innocence.
Chief Minister Paul Everingham has today announced that as a result of continuing police inquiries, a second inquest into the death of Azaria Chamberlain will be held.
Chamberlains were interviewed at length by detectives on Saturday. Almost certainly, they were asked questions relating to the findings of the forensic tests done by one of the world's top 3 pathologists, Professor James Cameron. And now the speculation and the rumours, which the coroner had hoped to stop, have started again.
Mr. Chamberlain,
they're telling lies.
Further forensic tests
Me, I can't breathe. Cliff, I think you better call a doctor. No. No, I don't want anybody. I just want to be on my own. Go fast! Go fast!
Mr. Gary Galvin committed Mrs. Chamberlain for trial on a charge of murdering her child Azaria. Her husband Michael was to face the court charged with being an accessory after the fact.
On the basis of the evidence before him, that a jury properly instructed could arrive at a verdict. He said therefore that it was his intention to commit the Chamberlains on the charges recommended by the Crown.
The inquest has already had its moments of drama. A number of death threats were made against the parents, and the Chamberlains were placed under a heavy police guard.
Have they set a date for the trial?
May the 16th.
Good.
You won't be showing.
I'm pregnant.
Congratulations.
Yes, I think we might want to keep that between ourselves for the time being.
As soon as it gets out, it could be seen as an appeal to sway public opinion.
I know that, and I don't care. Not anymore. I've learned a lot of things over the past year, none of them very nice. Being innocent doesn't matter. Telling the truth doesn't matter. Can't rely on the system we once thought worked. If they get their way with this crazy setup, I'll be in jail the rest of my life. So, I'm going to have this baby, regardless of what people think of me. Because if I am found guilty, I'll have missed my last opportunity. I'm not going to let them get away with ruining my life like that.
The trial date for the Chamberlain case has today been postponed. Lindy and Michael Chamberlain have been charged with the murder of their baby daughter Azaria at Ayers Rock 2 years ago. The trial will now proceed in October.
Knock, knock.
They're going to say I reconstructed the baby's clothes.
To make them look like they were folded. Don't worry about it, Frank. Knock, knock.
Those defence lawyers of hers are really going to hammer me again.
Look, mate, nobody blames you for not making it a crime scene. You'd look the right idiot if you'd secured the perfect crime scene around the tent and then they'd found a dead baby up on the sandhill the next morning. Now, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Azaria.
Azaria who?
Beauty. You can be on the jury.
We were there at Ayers Rock. Amanda was attacked and that dingo would have killed her.
We're scared about what might happen to Amanda. This case is so well known. It's on the front of every newspaper. We've already had to put up with the dingo jokes and people calling us names.
Amanda starts kindergarten next year. We don't want her branded with this.
Nightmares and the bedwetting haven't stopped in over 2 years. The doctor tells us she'll grow out of it, but maybe not if we get involved in this Chamberlain case.
It's our Christian duty to help these people. But I can't stop worrying about the damage it might do to our daughter. What should we do?
You left your details at Ayers Rock?
Yes, and a report of the attack.
Nobody has contacted you?
No.
So, if the lawyers want you, they'll find you and they'll call you. It would appear they don't need you, Max. Look after Amanda. Do not feel any guilt or shame in the eyes of the Lord.
A 3-year-old girl was pulled from the front seat of her family car by a dingo. By all accounts, it sounds like a most savage attack.
Yes.
However, we have been unable, despite a thorough search, to come up with the registration number of the family car or of any details.
I'll just go sign in.
We want to apply to Your Honour for permission to advertise throughout the nation's press for the family to come forward.
Can't be serious, John. I don't know if you've been to the Rock, but there's a logbook that records every car that comes and goes. Furthermore, Inspector Childwood from Alice Springs has done an extremely thorough job in locating all the tourists who were at the Rock the night the baby went missing from that logbook. How is it you can't track them down that way?
It would appear that the pages relevant to the dates in question, June 1980, have been lost or misplaced.
Ian?
I would suggest any testimony from that family would be irrelevant.
You've got Cormac, whose son was mauled by a dingo. You've got Rolf, who will testify as to dingo attacks. You don't need it. To prove one more attack by a dingo is unnecessary.
For the media, the Chamberlain trial is the biggest thing to hit Darwin since Cyclone Tracy back in 1974.
Yeah, the dingo took my baby!
For the first time since this sorry mess began, my police force has been vindicated. You know, the boys are taking a real beating over the past few years, what with the shooting of those abos at T3, and then the Chamberlains. I hear another fucking dingo joke. The boys can stand tall tonight. They can be proud of themselves tonight.
Yeah, she went and replaced old Phil Rice. Got herself some tough QC from Melbourne.
A Melbourne barrister up here. She's lost before it's even started.
When I joined the force back in '49, they gave me a uniform, a rifle, and a bayonet. I stood tall. I was proud of my job, and people looked up to me. Being a policeman in those days meant something. Now my boys have got a taste of it. It's my shout. Good day, Jim.
Hey, how are you?
And when are we going to get you out fishing again, eh?
Mr. Ian Barker, QC, is definitely not in the mainstream of Australian lawyers, nor is his legal background anything like traditional. He was admitted as a solicitor in New South Wales in 1960 and practiced for a year at Katoomba, New South Wales before going bush. He decided to set up practice in Alice Springs and for some time was the only solicitor between Port Augusta and Darwin. He worked in Alice Springs until 1970 when he moved to Darwin. In 1978, he was appointed solicitor for the Northern Territory. The Department of Law was the first public service department to be formed in the Northern Territory, and it took over the functions of the Commonwealth Attorney General's Department. Ian Barker was appointed to start the department off, and when the Territory became self-governing on the 1st of July 1978, he became Solicitor General. Ian Barker appears in the Territory from time to time, mainly in criminal cases.
As a result of the second inquest, the Chamberlains today went for trial in Darwin.
Here's the deal. You plead guilty and...
I don't want to know about this deal.
It's our duty to inform you. You plead guilty and they'll let you go free.
No.
You must understand what innocence means to innocent people.
Your Honour, members of the jury. The baby was killed at Ayers Rock on August 17th, 1980, during the evening between 8 and 9 o'clock. It was a Sunday. She died very quickly because somebody had cut her throat. The Crown case is that the child was killed by her mother Alice Lynn Chamberlain using some sharp cutting instrument. The child was killed while Mrs. Chamberlain sat in the front passenger seat of the family car. The Crown does not venture to suggest any reason or motive for the killing. We simply say to you that the evidence to be put before you will prove beyond reasonable doubt that for whatever reason, the baby was murdered by her mother. The Dingo story is a fanciful lie. This is a case of simple alternatives. Either a dingo killed Azaria, or it was homicide.
The Crown is saying it's impossible you heard the baby when Mrs. Chamberlain returned to the barbecue area.
I disagree with that.
Mr. Barker told the court in his opening address that there were just insignificant traces of blood in the tent.
I wouldn't have said that. That's what convinced me that the baby was dead, the amount of blood that I saw.
She is very adamant. She heard a sharp cry. But there is a dispute about whether Mrs. Lowe really heard the baby cry. Maybe it wasn't that baby cry. She looked into the tent and swore she saw a pool of blood.
Mrs. Lowe told the jury she did hear the baby cry. A serious cry, she said, come from the direction of the Chamberlain tent. Mrs. Lowe said she'd had nightmares about the cry 18 months afterwards.
Mrs. Lowe's evidence. Mrs. Lowe's evidence concerning the pool of blood. Now that evidence came to us from a Crown witness. Came from a Crown witness in chief. Not in cross-examination. But that doesn't follow that we have to accept that. And we don't accept it. But as to her evidence concerning the pool of blood, with very great respect, my submission to you is that it existed really in her imagination and nowhere else. It is very strange that only Mrs. Lowe saw this pool of blood.
This is new. It's called luminol. Test for blood and is apparently quite reliable.
Positive luminol reactions were obtained. None of the samples could be determined as blood by further testing. The blood is unlikely to be human in origin.
Luminol was a presumptive test. I suggested you're entitled to find that it was not human blood, and therefore nothing to do with this case.
I just don't understand how the legal system works. We get called as witnesses by the prosecution who believe Lindy's guilty, and they run through our evidence before we get to the court. Evidence that supports Lindy. And then we go on the stand and they don't ask you the same questions. And I'm questioned by some junior guy.
That's the point. And Barker sits there doodling with his red pen to make it look as though you've got nothing important to say.
I just want people to know the truth.
Even my mum thinks Lindy did it.
People question your credibility and we don't even know them. And they don't drink, eat meat, swear.
If Lindy is found guilty, and after what I've been through with the court, I reckon anything can happen. We'll all be found guilty of lying.
Gotta get another round of beers then.
The people gather in the village square, waving lanterns. Who goes there? Good people Salem, oh Salem. The devil's curse upon the land will never be undone.
Taking the left sleeve of the jumpsuit and folding it to make 4 thicknesses, then commencing a cut through the 4 thicknesses reaching the top.
Detective Cox said the holes in the jumpsuit had been made by scissors.
I don't say this facetiously, because when I say that dingoes don't use scissors, they are incapable of using a bladed instrument. Only human beings can use a pair of scissors. Dingoes don't use scissors. Even those intelligent, dexterous dingoes that live out at the Ayers Rock National Park. It may be that they own scissors, because they seem to be stealing tourist suitcases from time to time. But whether they can use them or not, I suggest is not difficult of assessment. They just collect them, but they don't use them. Dr. Brown, it might be more sensible if you could come up to the jury box. Dr. Brown, if you would not mind. Can you tell us, in your opinion, was that hole made by a dingo bite?
No.
Dr. Brown says the holes in the jumpsuit and singlet were not made by dingo teeth. He has done extensive testing on the garment.
He said he came to this conclusion because of the direction the fibres were severed and the size of the holes.
He told the court 2 holes on the back of the singlet appeared to have come from a different direction.
I could detect no blood on the metal clips from the passenger seat of the car. Who's this?
Culliford. He's a forensic biologist from London.
He's one of our witnesses.
Yes.
They were slightly rusty. Is he saying it was rust, not blood in the car? Joey Cool said it was blood.
Yes.
The blood staining on the other items was in very poor condition, and I was unable to determine the species or group of any of this material. Who's this bloke again?
He's one of the world's most experienced experts in this area. He invented the test that's used to detect fetal blood.
Lucky he's working for us then, eh? Jesus. Mrs. Cool's work for the second inquest appears to be good. However, for the jury to understand, I would recommend large pre-drawn diagrams to be presented by the prosecution. Pictures, yeah, good idea. Is he saying Joy's work is unreliable?
Mrs. Cool, do you go out to crime scenes?
Yes, Mr. Sturgis.
And you were asked to make an examination of a motor car and camera bag, and you have your notes of those examinations?
Yes, I do.
What did you do?
I went over everything, inch by inch, doing a screening test for blood. 3 days on the car, 4 days on the camera bag.
Just on the screening. And for explanation, you've prepared a number of slides.
Yes, I have.
Your Honour, may the witness come down?
Yes, I think we have a wandering microphone.
My slides probably need the use of a pointer, Your Honour.
Mr. Barker is armed with a pointer or some offensive weapon.
The fetal separates out at a higher level than the adult.
Can you confuse adult hemoglobin into fetal hemoglobin?
No, they are totally different molecules.
And how many positive results for fetal hemoglobin did you get?
22 positive results.
Now, you have come here and offered a number of opinions. The fact is, the hard evidence has all been destroyed.
I'm sorry, the results aren't destroyed.
The plates are destroyed.
Yes.
Right. They are not available for inspection by experts retained by the defense.
No.
Did you take any photographs?
No, we do not have the facilities for that.
The fact is, with orthotolidine, you can get a positive reaction to substance like milk, vomit, rust.
Rust sometimes.
Andrew, we have a report from London.
From a Dr. Lincoln, very highly qualified. He states that there is no blood on the passenger seat, the metal clips, the camera bag, the seat bracket, the floor of the car. The dash spray is not blood. There's no blood on the towel, and the singlet tested positive.
We should call him. We should fly him out from London.
Fly him out? Who's going to pay for that?
Legal aid can't afford it.
What I'd like is the government to pay our bills.
Yes, well, at least we have Professor Bodger.
In your opinion, should it be concluded on the results of any of the tests performed by Mrs. Cool that fetal hemoglobin was present?
In my opinion, such a conclusion should not be reached from the results presented by Mrs. Cool. The first observation that I made was that there were a very high proportion of tests positive for blood that gave reaction with the anti-fetal hemoglobin serum. The second set of observations, which to me appeared anomalous, were on the tests not comparing controls with the blood samples tested from the car, but having a look at the reaction given by the different anti-serum against the blood samples taken from the car. I think this court has information from the past that anti-serum, known as anti-hemoglobin, has in it antibodies that react with both alpha and beta chains, which are found in hemoglobins. The alpha chains are found in all hemoglobins, both adult and fetal. The beta globin chain is found only in adult hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin contains both both alpha and gamma hemoglobin chains.
Professor, are you what is called an academic? I now turn to the topic of blood generally. I see your eyes glazing. Like Mr. Phillips, I lament those innocent days when I thought that heptoglobin was something which dwelt amongst the flowers at the bottom of my garden. Mrs. Cool managed to get 22 positive results for fetal hemoglobin. Now, this is very prejudicial and embarrassing evidence to the accused. Clearly, it is damaging to them to have a car with traces of fetal blood in it, to have a camera bag with fetal blood on it.
There seems to be no doubt that the blood in the car is fetal blood.
Mr. Phillips said to you that I didn't dare tell you it contained the body. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know that I'd be afraid to tell you. It's just that we can't prove whether the child was in the camera bag or whether its clothes were in the camera bag. There is fetal hemoglobin identified on the zipper.
What about the fetal blood that was found, number one, in the camera case, in the seatbelt clips, underneath the door handle of the car,
Right.
and this was fetal blood?
Ow. What are you doing in there? Ow! Are you trying to turn upside down? That's better. Gee whiz, you're an active one, aren't you? What am I going to call you? Now, Mummy's going to take this old dress. Where do we get this? Swap shop. And she's going to let it out because Mummy's gotten real fat over the last couple of weeks. Daddy's not real happy about that. Not much Mummy can do. I'll take it off later.
Professor Cameron, how many autopsy examinations have you carried
It's
out?
in excess of 50,000.
How many cases of dog bites have you been associated with?
Very difficult to give you a definite figure on that. It's certainly in the double figures.
Now, could you tell the jury, in your view, is there any evidence on those articles of clothing which suggest to you that the child was attacked and killed by Dingo?
I saw no evidence on any of these garments to suggest that any member of the K9 family was involved. There is evidence to suggest it was killed in another method.
What does the evidence
It
suggest?
suggests there was an incised wound of the neck. In other words, a cut throat.
Caused by what?
A cutting instrument
Held by?
held by a human element.
Would you mind getting the jumpsuit and coming closer to the jury? Can you explain to us what you saw? Come a little closer if you would.
The only way which one can reproduce this pattern of bleeding is by a cut wound across the neck.
Professor Cameron, I would like to ask you some questions about a famous English case you were involved in.
Yes?
You gave evidence for the prosecution.
Yes.
One of them was convicted of murder, another of manslaughter, another for arson.
That's right.
There was a court of appeal?
Yes.
At the end of the evidence, the court of
I
appeal...
object to that. What the Court of Appeal did has got nothing to do with this witness. With great respect.
I don't know what the question was going to be. Were you going to say what they found?
I was just going to say what the result was.
Yeah, well, that's what I object to.
Very well, I note the objection. I'll allow it.
Their convictions were quashed after 3 years in jail.
I would agree with that, yes.
You gave evidence in the case without knowing other opinions?
That is correct, yes.
The Crown's star witness was British Professor James Cameron. It was his opinion that blood stains around the neck of the jumpsuit indicated the child's throat was cut that prompted the second inquest into her death. Address, the senior defence counsel, John Phillips, said that both Michael and Lindy Chamberlain had decided to take the stand and give evidence under oath. Mr. Phillips stressed to the jury that neither of the accused had any legal obligation whatsoever to appear in the witness box.
As to the articles of clothing your child Azaria was wearing, the jumpsuit, do you confirm these were the clothes your child was wearing?
Yes.
Louder, please. I can't hear.
Mrs. Chamberlain, do you confirm these were the clothes your child was wearing?
How are you feeling, Mrs. Chamberlain? All right?
Yes, thank you, Your Honour.
Please state what other article Azaria was wearing.
She had a white knitted marquee matinee jacket with a pale lemon edging.
Some of the jury are upset now.
I'm sorry, Your Honour. It's my fault.
We'll take a break for a quarter of an hour.
I am obliged to put this to you, Mrs. Chamberlain. The Crown claims that you did not put your baby to bed, that you took it to the car, and in the front seat of the car you cut the child's throat. What do you say to that?
It's not true.
Mr. Barker? You must cross-examine. Would you like me to ask her whether she would like a spell before you cross-examine?
No, I'd rather not, Your Honour, please.
Are you telling the truth about this dingo?
Yes.
Are you telling the truth about the dingo coming out of the tent?
Yes.
Are you telling the truth about seeing a dingo go off for a couple of feet?
Yes.
And then losing sight of it?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain, you do understand that the Crown asserts this dingo story is mere fantasy?
Yes.
And that you, in fact, killed the child?
Yes.
Let me put this to you directly, Mrs. Chamberlain. That when you went to the tent from the barbecue area with Azaria, you, in fact, entered the car.
After I put her down to sleep, I did.
I put it to you that you sat in the front passenger seat and that you held the baby in front of you and that you cut its throat?
No,
You deny that?
I deny that.
I suggest to you that a spray of blood from the child went up under the dash of the car in front of the seat. I suggest that you moved the child's body and blood flowed down the offside of the seat in which you were sitting, which is how the blood got down under the hinge. Do you deny that?
No.
I suggest that you left the body in the car.
No,
Either
that's-
wrapped or in the camera bag.
No, that's pure
That
fabrication.
you washed your hands in the tent.
No.
I suggest that you went back to the barbecue. That your husband asked you to check the baby.
My husband did ask me to check the baby, yes.
Not hear her cry.
No.
You went back to the tent and you invented the story of the dingo removing the child from the tent.
Definitely not.
Whether you saw a dingo or not.
I definitely did not invent that story. It's the truth, Mr. Barker.
Mrs. Chamberlain, you say this child was in the mouth of a dingo, which was vigorously shaking its head at the entrance to the tent. That's what you firmly believe, is that right?
That's right.
The dog having taken Azaria from the bassinet.
Take it steady, Mrs. Chamberlain.
You saw blood on the parka.
Yes.
Would you like a spell, Mrs. Chamberlain?
No, I'd rather get it over with.
I don't want you answering questions when you're distressed. Would you like a 10-minute break?
No, I prefer to continue. This has been going on for 2 years. I want to get it over with.
You say the blood on the parka must have come from the baby.
Yes.
When it was in the dog's mouth?
Somewhere around that time.
What other time could it have come from the baby?
Look, Mr. Barker, I wasn't there. I can only go on the evidence of my own eyes. We're talking about my baby daughter, not some object.
Right, I think we'll adjourn now.
As Your Honour pleases. The last moment that you saw Azaria, what was she doing?
I beg your pardon?
The last moment that you saw her, what was she doing?
Sleeping.
Have you any idea what happened to the child?
I believe it was taken by a dingo.
Are you in some doubt about that?
Not really.
What did your wife tell you had happened with the child?
That a dingo had taken her.
When did she tell you that?
Very early on in the piece when I heard her call out.
What did she say when she called out?
I heard her say, "A dingo's got my baby."
When did she tell you in detail what had happened?
Well, I heard that from her lips when she was racing from the tent.
What did she tell you?
I can't recall exactly the conversations that she made.
Would you try? Do your best.
I think we agreed it was an almost incredible thing to happen.
What did she tell you?
Perhaps I can help you. Did she tell you anything about a dingo?
Yes.
What did she tell you about the dingo? Just to the best of your memory.
I think she mentioned it was a good-looking dog.
Yes, I'm sorry you misunderstand me. What did she tell you about her observations of the dingo as to what she saw it doing?
Well, she said it was in the tent. But I can't specifically recall anything she told me.
It was a common knowledge thing, in my opinion, a foregone conclusion. I believed her, and I followed on that belief.
Mr. Chamberlain, this involved the disappearance of your child. And there's no doubt, is there, that your wife was the last person to see the child alive?
No.
What did she say she'd seen?
Well, when I read the record of interview...
I'm asking what she told you, not the police.
Well, she said she saw a dingo coming out of the tent.
Mr. Chamberlain, I suggest to you this whole story is nonsense and that you know it.
No, Mr. Barker.
How do you account for the damage to the collar of the baby's jumpsuit?
I can't account for it.
Do you accept it was done by a pair of scissors?
I don't know.
You accept it was not done by a dingo?
That I don't know either.
What about the damage to the sleeve? How do you account for that?
Again, I don't know.
Did you cut it?
No.
Did your wife cut it?
I don't think so.
Did she cut the collar?
I don't think so.
Did you bury the jumpsuit with the child in it?
No.
Did your wife?
I don't think she did.
Did you rub the jumpsuit in vegetation?
No.
Did your wife?
Not that I know of.
What are you doing? It's boiling in here.
I'm cold.
Put a blanket on.
I want to put a blanket on. I want the air conditioning off.
I'm 8 months pregnant. I've got a hot water bottle inside.
I want to be comfortable when I sleep.
Then sleep in the other room.
Okay.
There's a highway. Come take it with me. Out of town, out of time, out of your mind, and in your dreams. Do you still see me there? Waiting for only you in the dark, in the dark, in the dark.
The defense does not have to prove anything. On the contrary, all the proving must be done by the prosecution. I just want to put this to you. If the Dingo story is a fanciful lie, what are the odds of two witnesses, utterly independent of her and each other, saying they came across dingo tracks, and that the dingo or dog had left an imprint in the sand which looked like a woolen jumper or woven fabric? Now, the learned prosecutor put many allegations to Mrs. Chamberlain, but the most important allegation in this trial, Mrs. Chamberlain, I put it to you that the reason you cut your child's throat was it was never put. It was never put because Mr. Barker, one of the best men in the business, just cannot think of any reason why she would do it.
Mr. just as well, isn't it, that we wear wigs and gowns in courts? It permits people like me to take one faltering step forwards towards people like Mr. Phillips in elegance, if not in eloquence. And a gown, of course, enables me to cover up my old shirts. May I deal briefly with this question of motive? We don't know why this happened. If the other proved facts convince you that she's guilty, then motive has nothing to do with the matter. I could have said to her, Mrs. Chamberlain, I put it to you, the reason you cut your child's throat was that you had been taking LSD, or you were depressed, or any one of a number of reasons which would have brought an immediate and well-justified objection from Mr. Phillips, a remonstration from His Honour, and it probably would have affected grievously my professional future. So we can't put them. We can't make up a motive for the purposes of a case. Either a dingo killed that child, or she was murdered. Either a dingo or murder. And if it was murder, the evidence points overwhelmingly to the accused, Alice Lynn Chamberlain. Now, Mr. Phillips suggested to you, rather darkly, that that devious fellow, Barker, might try to make out a case which is not the case that we started off with. Well, it was a little unkind. All I've done is to suggest to you that as intelligent jurors, you can draw inferences from proven facts. In my respectful submission, the case has been proved. You see, it is the totality of the evidence that gives this case its strength. This is probably a classic textbook case of circumstantial evidence. It's not some pet theory of mine. There is a massive body of evidence suggesting the child was murdered by her mother. Mrs. Chamberlain is not a witness of credit. Her evidence is not worthy of belief. No dingo had anything to do with the death of Azaria Chamberlain. There were no dingo hairs, no saliva, no dingo damage to the jumpsuit. She invented the dingo lie. She's lied constantly and persistently. She lied as part of the process of concealing the fact of a murder. She had the opportunity. The blood in the car came from Azaria. The blood in the camera bag came from Azaria. All these things we put to you, you are entitled to find as facts. If there was no dingo, the child was murdered. The question, who did it, is brutally answered. Alice Lynn Chamberlain.
If the Crown assertions are accurate, Mrs. Chamberlain cuts Azaria's throat with small scissors and causes injuries resulting in death. Would have been a pretty bloody event. She conceals the body somewhere in the car, and she returns to the tent where she may have washed her hands in the tent bath, which she leaves in the tent, and which she later empties pretty close to Mrs. Elston. The problem of concealing the killing lies ahead of her. Providentially, her husband says he hears the baby crying. And then, as she nears the tent, she is heard to cry out, my God, a dog has taken my baby." Or words to that effect. If it was a plan to conceal murder, it was pretty quick thinking. They were in a very dangerous situation. People and police and rangers coming and going. With caring women around her, talking to her, watching her, she and her husband take the body from the car. They bury it in the dunes, and sometime later go and dig it up and possibly rebury it. The car is clean, the blood is mopped up, or partially so, and at some time, Someone puts the blood-stained clothing, or perhaps the body, or something bloody, in the camera case. Then, at some stage, the Crown asserts, the parents placed the clothing at the base of the rock. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are to convict her, this is the situation of which you must be satisfied beyond reasonable doubt.
Four guilty, four not guilty, four undecided. Look, why don't the four undecideds reveal themselves and perhaps we can start by discussing why they are.
I listened to the scientific stuff about the blood in the car, and I know it's sort of one person's word against the other. I understood Mrs. Cool, and there seems to be no doubt there was fetal blood in the car. It's just... I just don't believe she did it.
Why?
Well, you look at her and you just sort of know. She didn't kill her baby. She loved it.
I think she's innocent, but I got really confused when the judge summed up against her.
But she couldn't have done it. There wasn't enough time. It was too quick.
Are you sure about that, though?
6 not guilty, 6 guilty. Where's the manual?
G'day, how you going?
Jury has now been deliberating for 3 hours after a long, emotionally charged case. Off your photo, girls.
My turn.
How come Mrs. Lowe and Michael and Aidan heard the baby cry and Lindy didn't?
It's impossible for a dingo to have done it.
Well, Mrs. Lowe was pretty insistent. She heard a baby's cry.
Well, we don't want to be here all night.
What I want to know is, how come the defence didn't test the car for fetal blood? I was waiting for the big thing from the defence to say she was innocent. Maybe we should go back and have another look at the exhibits.
Fair enough.
Lindy said that as she ran to the tent, she could see into the back, and she could see that the basket was empty.
Look at the light. Look at the tent.
There's no way you can see that the baby's not in the basket. I can barely make out the basket. Do you think the lighting's right?
That's 10 guilty and 2 not guilty.
Why didn't they search? They went to the motel and didn't call the police. They took photos for the press. They even went to the Aboriginal camp to take photos. Lindy suggested a trip to the Olgas. How could anyone leave so soon?
Let's do another vote. What do you think?
There's a highway. Come take it. me. Out of town, out of time, out of your mind, and in your dreams.
Alice Lynn Chamberlain, you have been found guilty of murder by verdict of a jury. There is only one sentence I can pass on you. The sentence of this court is that you be imprisoned with hard labor for life.
Reporters came spilling out of Supreme Court number 1 after 7 weeks of what by any account was Australia's most extraordinary criminal trial. Lindy Chamberlain had sat impassively by her husband and heard a jury declare that she was guilty of cutting her baby daughter's throat.
Something has happened.
What? What, Grandma?
The bad men have taken Mummy away. She'll be all right, but she's going to be gone for a long time.
No, it's not fair! No, it's not fair! Stop it! Stop! Mum wants to come home!
Ethan, come on.
No! Stop!
Showered, dressed, bed made, room tidied, ready for unlock in half an hour. Better hurry it up.
The judge, Mr. Justice Muirhead, said that in the interests of justice, he would suspend the 18-month jail sentence. He ordered that Mr. Chamberlain be released forthwith on a bond. Soon after, Mr. Chamberlain was whisked away in a friend's car.
How did this happen? It's wrong.
I just can't believe it.
What would it be like to be in her shoes?
Life with hard labour, it's not justice.
Did we do the right thing?
Mrs. Chamberlain was admitted to the Darwin Hospital here at Casuarina about 5:30 this morning. But the media contingent waiting outside the doors of the hospital could get neither confirmation nor denial of this fact.
I don't know here, and let's get you prepped. Oh, and you might like to sit over there.
I have to record everything accurately and try and make sure she doesn't escape.
Oh, not much chance of that.
Trust me, she's not going to try and escape, even if she wanted to.
I'll just try to stay in there a little bit longer.
But I don't think you're going to want to sit there either.
Oh, I'll take over now. You'll advise the guards when the baby's born. You know it's to be removed immediately after birth?
Yeah, I'm aware of the procedure.
No! No! No!
Push, come on, push! Oh! 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 Push! Push!
I'm sorry, Lindy. It really is time.
Lindy and Michael Chamberlain failed today in their bid before the Federal Court of Appeal to have their convictions overturned. Mr. Ian Barker, QC, told the court that Michael Chamberlain's behaviour on the night was bizarre if he believed that Dingo had taken his baby. If, on the other hand, according to Mr. Barker, Chamberlain thought his wife had killed their baby, his behaviour could be explained. Lindy Chamberlain is serving her life sentence at Berrima Jail, outside Darwin.
My darling family. Michael, Aidan, Regan and Carlia. It's hot up here, but not too bad. I finished my first full week of work roster and bought myself a small can of Milo with the money. It cost $1.71 and I received $1.90. I wish I could give you all a big hug, but I'm trying to be cheerful. I hope you're all helping each other to be happy too.
Are you a moron?
No.
I thought I told you to wait over there.
Well, then Wallace came and told
Don't
me to...
you fucking talk back to me, you little shit. Who the fuck do you think you are? Get back over there and do what you're told. Or else I'll put you on report.
How's the housework? Beds made for Daddy and rooms tidy, kids? I hope so. Look after one another, won't you? I love you all very, very much, you know. One day we'll all be back together again. Azaria, too, in heaven. Try to all be good, strong, true men for Jesus. Give our princess a big hug and a kiss from Mummy and tell her I love her lots. And one for each of you, too. Love, Mummy.
Today, before a crowd describing themselves as concerned citizens who respect the law, the verdict was a different one for Lindy Chamberlain. Amidst babies and Bibles, they demanded her freedom.
Organisers of tonight's Azaria rally say they won't rest until Lindy is proven innocent. 3 people who were camping near the Chamberlains gave their accounts of that night's events to the meeting and described her as a warm and loving mother.
The information came from Roberta and Peter Elston. Their evidence said that they had seen the same pet dingo the day after Azaria's disappearance, although it had allegedly been shot by a ranger 2 months before.
That's something I can't understand because living at Ayers Rock, I was aware he was a ranger's pet dingo, and we had seen Ding several days after Azaria's disappearance.
I lived at Ayers Rock most of my life. I know all about Ayers Rock. This dingo had 3 names. Ding, Scarface, Kulpam.
Good boy.
Rangers always fed him. He wasn't frightened of people at all. Ian Caver said I was telling
lies when I said the dingo went down towards the ranger's house on the corner. Said I was telling lies. I do not tell lies, only true. The dingo had been carrying something heavy up to this point, where we lost the tracks, near the house.
Bloody outrageous.
Ding was alive at the time that Azaria disappeared. Peter and myself saw Constable Frank Morris shoot Ding a few days later.
Isn't that Ding?
I think so. were upset to see him shot because he used to come around the houses a lot.
This new information must raise doubt about the competence of Northern Territory Police, their methods of collecting evidence, and how it is used in court. Information has been gathered that either through police bungling, incompetence or omissions by the defence, negligence or misconduct by officials, evidence was not given to the trial jury of relevant facts.
Frank categorically denies this. Who is this Nipperwin Matty?
He's the traditional owner of Uluru.
There's Rock, and he belongs to us. Bloody federal government handed back to a tribe of abo is ridiculous.
The theory is a pet dingo took the baby. Someone found it and disposed of it.
It's an outrageous allegation.
That was what Barrett was on about in the first inquest. Human intervention.
It's called murder.
There was a pet dingo that the Rock guys fed and looked after called Ding or Scarface. No one denies it.
Yeah. Ian Kaywood categorically swears he shot Ding before Azaria was taken.
Yeah, well, Kaywood's a good man. What he says will be true.
But we've got this nurse and her bloke saying that Ding was alive, and Nipper, who's a highly regarded tracker, saying that he tracked to Kaywood's house, and so do some tourists who were there when the baby was taken. And they're on the TV every night saying the Territory covered this up.
The allegations are bullshit, and we'll prove it.
Why? I mean, it was murder. The mother's in jail. The jury found her guilty. Why investigate allegations that are premised on the dingo taking the baby?
Needs to be eliminated, mate.
I've put Graham Charwood onto it.
The latest theory is that there's a political conspiracy to keep this poor little Lindy in jail. So I think it is the most offensive, insulting campaign against our judicial system, never mind the Northern Territory government, that's ever been waged in this country. I find it insulting, and it is dangerous to our way of life.
Charges of a conspiracy in relation to the disappearance of Azaria Chamberlain have been brought before the Attorney General.
So I've heard.
I'm conducting the investigation. I need a search warrant.
For what?
Medical records at the Alice Springs Hospital.
Pertaining to?
One Nipperwin Marty. He's an Aboriginal tracker. I'm led to believe his eyesight is defective.
We need an offence, Graham.
Conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. Was there at any time any confrontation between you and Nipperwin Marty over finding and identification of any tracks?
No. Or I might just qualify that, because it did enter my mind that it may have been an Aboriginal camp dog. It wasn't a confrontation with Nipper, but it certainly was a discussion.
Were there any tracks that went in the direction of where you live, your house?
No.
When was Ding shot?
It was, Monday the 23rd of June. The day the child was mauled by Ding. It says I shot Ding.
I get on quite well with Win Marty. Over the years he's come to our house, and on numerous occasions I've given him cast-off clothing from the family.
Did you see Win Marty tracking to Kaywood's house?
I didn't see him doing that.
Does Nipper wear glasses?
He has very poor eyesight.
It's possible that maybe Nipper had a couple of beers. Because he likes a couple of beers, now and again.
Did Nipper locate tracks in the vicinity of Kaywood's residence?
No. Unequivocal. No.
Were you aware of any dispute between Kaywood and Nipper?
No. No.
I think that she's a cold-blooded, calculating murderess. And I do think that there is far, far too much of the taxpayers' money wasted on the Chamberlains already. And what about a little bit of justice for baby Azaria?
I've had the media trying to call us at all hours. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, we've been harassed too.
Did you get that letter from the government saying they'd cover all our legal costs?
Yeah.
It's just reassuring to know that you've got a government on your side.
Ian Kaywood. See you later. Was it your pet dingo that ate Azaria Chamberlain? Mr. Kaywood!
On that film, Nipper, you said that Ian Kaywood called you a liar.
I said to Ian Kaywood I was telling the truth. In God's name, Dingo took the child. Ian Kaywood said I was telling lies.
Well, what was he telling lies about?
Ayolo Papa Jina Nyang.
Because I tracked that dog past his house, that's why.
Do you know of a dingo that was called Scarface or Ding?
Ding, Scarface, Ding, same dog.
When you were doing the tracking, did you wear eyeglasses?
Or?
Yes.
I might have to come back again another time. Talk to you again.
I wouldn't be here. You many times tell me lie.
So what they've done is tested the soil on the baby's jumpsuit with samples of soil from Kaywood's house, the Workshop Road, Sunrise Hill. And? It is essentially similar. The sample from the back of Kaywood's house is some affinities, but is not identical.
The simple conclusion is that the soil found in the clothing is not similar to that in the area of Kaywood's house.
So you found no evidence to substantiate allegations of any conspiracy by Kaywood or Frank?
The accusations are based on misinterpretation, unsubstantiated rumours and supposition.
And they deny them entirely. Those accusations are extremely serious. If there's no evidence to support this so-called conspiracy, who's responsible?
Nipperwin Marty was apparently manipulated.
But Frank and Kaywood are going to sue for defamation. I've spoken to the boss and we'll bloody support them, that's for sure. It's outrageous.
When that woman has had more chances than anybody else to prove her innocence, has failed at every time, and now we have all these people who are no doubt well-intentioned running around the country trying to turn her into some kind of latter-day Joan of Arc.
A lot of people have said she's got a hard face, she could do it. She may have a hard face, but she can't help that. And a lot of people don't show their emotions. In all walks of life, you get a person that maybe can't cry, but deep down that they're very sad.
The High Court was Lindy Chamberlain's last chance to be cleared of murdering her daughter Azaria at Ayers Rock in August 1980. Her husband Michael arrived at the High Court a few minutes before the judgment was handed down, knowing that many Chamberlain supporters believed they'd win this time.
Lindy Chamberlain is just 1 year into her life sentence at Berrima Jail, where she has been imprisoned since her controversial murder conviction.
Get used to it, baby killer. You've just lost that fancy High Court appeal of yours. Keeps you in here for the rest of your life.
There's no doubt a groundswell of public and now political opinion is flowing in Mrs. Chamberlain's favour.
Today's meeting have accumulated some 130,000 signatures on petitions calling for Lindy Chamberlain's release until a judicial review of her case.
On the 26th of this month, the federal government will officially grant title of the Northern Territory's biggest tourist draw card to 100 Aborigines, the traditional owners.
Officials have been told they're not to attend the ceremony in any official capacity. They're even being discouraged from attending as private citizens. But that won't stop intense...
Tribal elder Nipperwin Marty described the handover ceremony as a day for national celebration. We've located the body of a missing tourist and are conducting a search of the area for any relevant evidence.
You know what that is?
What this means is doubt. The defence maintained that the matinee jacket's existence meant that all the forensic work on the baby's clothes couldn't be relied upon. Prosecution said the matinee jacket didn't exist and was a figment of her imagination.
Well, what about the blood in the car?
There is a letter that's come from the manufacturers of the anti-serum that Joy Kuhl used. It's a letter from Germany to the Solicitor General, Mr. Martin, which states its product cannot be relied upon.
How much has this case cost the Territory?
I'd say we've passed the $10 million point, heading towards 15.
At the search area on the southwest side of the rock, the team concentrated their efforts on the 3-metre square section of ground where a baby's cardigan, or matinee jacket as it's now being described, was found on Sunday. The Chamberlain solicitor, Stuart Tipple, was on site again today.
The speculation increased that the body of Azaria might be buried in the area.
There was a flurry of activity. An important find, it was thought. But in reality, just a hoax for the media.
Can you identify that for us?
This looks pretty with your eyes. It does. This is Mummy's favourite. Oh, here we go. Up we go. Sweetheart, sweetheart. Come on, come on. You good girl. You good girl. Get your little collar out. Oh, good. It's Azaria's.
What's happening?
Chamberlain case. The Solicitor General has been sent a letter by the German manufacturers of some serum that Joy Kuhl used in her tests.
I've heard all this. What's the problem?
The opposition has been leaked a copy of it. They're going to the press. It'll be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow.
What? Suggesting evidence has been withheld?
Yeah, we got to stop the story.
I'm here to advise that the Northern Territory Government has decided to institute an inquiry into the Chamberlain case. The decision follows advice received from the Solicitor General and the Police Commissioner on what they regard as significant new evidence. They have advised me that the discovery of a baby's matinee jacket near the base of Ayers Rock and its subsequent identification of by Mrs. Chamberlain may have a bearing on the case. I can also advise that a short time ago His Honour the Administrator accepted the advice of Executive Council that the balance of Mrs. Chamberlain's life sentence be remitted and that she be released from Darwin Prison.
I think any government would have done this. No, the reason we let her out of prison is because we did not want her to languish in jail. She won't be going back to prison, regardless of the outcome of the inquiry. No, we have not done anything about the conviction. The conviction of murder still stands.
chin now.
Mummy, come on, I want to show you something. Come on.
All right, all right.
Welcome home, love.
Oh, Mum. Dad.
Sorry.
Oh.
We'll be on our way. You must be tired.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
Bye, love. Thanks, Cliff. Avis.
Mum. Where's Regan and Carly?
I had him sitting in Jen's. I just thought you might like to be alone for the night.
Mum! Mum!
Better go and have a look. Go see what he
Okay.
wants. What's his name? Princess.
I love you,
Looks like a little
Mummy.
boy,
Are you
but I
home
suppose
for
he's
good?
here. Yes, I'm home for good. I'm home for good. I'm not going back, am I?
No.
No.
I love you, Mummy.
I missed you.
Ian Barker QC was the prosecutor at the Chamberlains' original trial. He told Mr Justice Morling that despite new evidence and mistakes by Crown witnesses, the evidence still points to murder. Mrs Chamberlain's lies, Mr Barker said, were clear evidence of consciousness of guilt.
Your Honour, I seek leave to appear for the Northern Territory Crown and the Northern Territory Police Force.
Might I suggest to you, Mr Plum, that what you've just told His Honour about this being normal investigation is just not right?
No, this would have been a completely normal investigation. I might add, only for the attention of the press.
Do you normally, in your police investigations, invite the Attorney-General to sit around the conference table with you?
I never ever did.
I object to that.
Regarding Deborah and Barrick, it had nothing whatever to do with a mother cutting her baby's throat, did it?
No, but if I recall, there was something about a woman using a tent spike.
In my respectful submission, this is irrelevant. If my friend is suggesting that somehow, whether or not this story has been wrongly transmitted to Superintendent Plum, that it had some sort of effect on the outcome of the trial, or is my friend alleging malice on the part of Charlwood?
Mr. Barker, it has been suggested that the police were predisposed to accept that Mrs. Chamberlain murdered her daughter, and that it has been alleged that evidence favourable to her was not sympathetically treated. Evidence unfavourable to her was given a great deal of credence.
I identified an enhanced image that suggested to me the impression of a hand.
Some of the substance that stains the jumpsuit is not blood at all, but is red dust, red oxide.
I believe there is some suggestion of that.
This art of interpreting stains on clothing, is that a precise science?
No way whatsoever.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but you've never been asked to look at bloodstained garments in the absence of a body and give an interpretation as to the cause of death.
Not strictly true. I was asked to interpret, as you're aware, certain marks on the alleged Turin shroud.
Did you write a letter to the police commissioner, Peter McCauley, in 1981? It says, "Dear Pete, herewith my statement. I'm quite prepared to modify the report should you see fit, particularly after discussing the matter with you. As you can see, the report is in draft form, and I hope you will make any amendments you would like."
This was meant that Mr. McCauley could advise me to put the reports in a form consistent with the Northern Territory.
Great care is needed on the part of the forensic scientist before he expresses an opinion. Would you not agree?
Yes.
Because if that care is not taken, the opinion of that forensic scientist might go before a jury and cause a great mischief to the person at whom the opinion is directed.
Yes.
The opinion expressed by Professor Cameron that the blood staining on the jumpsuit was consistent with a cut throat cannot be safely adopted. Nor can it be concluded from the pattern of blood staining that Azaria's throat was cut with a blade. Professor Cameron's evidence that there was an imprint of a hand of blood on the jumpsuit has been totally destroyed by the new evidence, and that it was, in fact, red sand.
I saw Amanda on the ground, just huddled up in a heap with the dingo standing over her. His front legs were straddling her. Do you want me to go on?
Please.
And just at that point, the dingo turned his head and looked at me. And it just turned and trotted off. He wasn't in any hurry to get away. I went to pick her up. She was crying, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "The doggy dragged me." And I said, "There's the dingo." And he said, "That's Ding. I'll have to get rid of him."
Did you hear a shot that night?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Cranwell.
Do you want me to add anything more about Amanda's health since that occasion?
Actually, Mr. Cranwell, although I know it's a matter that, well, we do know the little girl did recover. That's so, isn't it?
She seems to be recovered now.
Yes, but His Honour is really concerned with, although I know Amanda's health interests you a lot.
Oh, yes.
His Honour is concerned with the nature of the attack on your daughter. Do you follow?
Yes.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Cranwell.
Mrs. Cool, you are a forensic biologist.
Yes?
You do know that you carry out tests to provide evidence against people who might be charged with offences.
Yes.
Do you mean what you said to the court before, that it's only the positive results that are of any interest to you?
Well, it's the positive results that are recorded in my notebook.
Yes. What I'm suggesting to you, Mrs. Cool, is that negative results might be equally as important. One part of the test gave you a positive.
Yes?
One part gave you a negative.
Yes.
What you've done is report the positive.
Yes?
What I'm suggesting to you is that those representing the accused might have been interested to know that you had carried out a test and not been able to demonstrate the presence of blood.
Well, for what purpose?
At the trial, Mrs. Cool gave evidence of tests of some 22 samples taken from various parts of the car, which she found the presence of baby's blood. I do not consider that the presence of baby's blood, or any blood, has been established under the dashboard. The spray pattern on the metal plate was sound-deadening compound and contained no blood at all. It is apparent on the weight of expert evidence that a conclusion cannot be drawn that the baby's blood or any blood was present on the carpet. On the hinge, inadequate controls were used in the testing of the coin. There was nothing to indicate the presence of blood in the camera bag. Thank you, Mrs. Cole. You're finished. free to go. I conclude that none of Mrs. Coull's tests established that any such blood was Azaria's.
Let me suggest to you there was the baby's cry, which Mrs. Lowe said she heard, which gave limited time to murder her baby.
There was limited time and opportunity, I'll agree with that.
There was Aidan's presence and conduct inconsistent, I suggest, with a woman taking her baby to kill it.
Unusual, yes.
There was the lack of observable blood in the car shortly after the crime is alleged to have occurred.
Yes, no blood was seen.
There was limited opportunity to dispose of the body.
Yes.
There was the lack of a body.
Yes.
There was a lack of motive or explanation.
Yes.
There was the lack of a confession.
Yes.
Can I suggest to you that those factors must have made this one of the most unusual murder cases in your experience?
Yes.
What did Constable Graham tell you he found?
Nothing of significance.
Nothing of significance, I think, were his words.
Was Constable Graham asked to make a statement by you?
Not that I recall.
You'd understand that during the trial, Mr. and Mrs. Chamberlain's legal counsel would have been very interested to learn that Constable Graham had conducted a 2-hour search of the car.
I never thought about that.
Well, didn't you say, I want the car thoroughly inspected to see if there's any blood in it?
Say to who?
The Chamberlains.
No, I didn't.
No, you wouldn't have, would you? Not of the nature of you. As an investigator, I suggest, Mr. Charwood.
In the nature of me?
In the nature of you, as a man, as an investigator?
No, I don't disclose a lot.
No, you're a very secretive investigator. Do you agree with that?
Perhaps a very secretive person.
Did you say the Dingo ran across in front of the car?
That was my impression of what I thought had happened.
Did you say this to the coroner?
It's quite obvious I said it to the coroner.
When I yelled at it, it had run across in front of the car.
Yes.
Is this a fact or an impression?
That's where I thought it had run.
When you spoke to Inspector Gilroy the day after the event, you said he took fright and ran in front of our car, which was parked next to the tent. Is this a fact or an impression?
I'm saying what I thought had happened.
Did you express any doubt to Gilroy that maybe the Dingo had gone somewhere else?
No.
Did you suggest to him, for example, that maybe it had gone between the tent and the car?
No, I didn't. Like I said before, I didn't realise how exactly specific and nitpicking you had to be in court.
You say that had someone said to you, well, look, this animal might have gone between the tent and the car. You would have said, yes, it might.
That's right.
Do you remember saying in a television interview, I yelled at the dog, he had disturbed the baby and went across in front of the car?
Yes.
Did you again suggest there anywhere that maybe it hasn't crossed in front of the car?
The description is sufficient for any intelligent person who is not nitpicking in court. I don't like you, Mr. Barker. I never have liked you. If you expect me to be polite to you, don't. I don't like your form of law and I don't adhere to it. Your type of law is the reason why courts in Australia are in such a mess.
Mrs. Chamberlain, I won't have that sort of conduct in my commission. We'll have an adjournment. If the evidence before the commission was brought before the jury during the trial, the judge would have been obliged to direct the jury to acquit the Chamberlains on the grounds that the evidence could not justify their conviction.
Day, the children still play, they're calling